You're listening to Real Love, Real Stories, a podcast to share, to learn, and thrive in love. So no matter where you are on the love continuum, this is the place to be. My name is Kanu and I'm the host, and thank you so much for being here. Welcome to Real Love, Real Stories. I'm really excited to have you on this morning. So why don't we have you introduce yourself to the audience?
Sure. Thank you. So my name is Jennifer Lehr. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. And I have, there's a lot to say. So I started in life with not very good relational skills, low self-esteem, very shy, insecure. And that's because of the way I was raised, the family I was raised in had a lot of relational problems. My mother was very disconnected, probably on the autistic spectrum. My father had a lot of rage, and it was not a nurturing environment. So I went out into the world and I didn't have skills, so my first relationship, really the first bunch of relationships were, you fall in love, you have good 6 months, and then the differences start arising and nobody knows what to do with them. And it turns into a breakup at some point. And then you do I did the whole pattern over again until at some point in my life, I was like, okay, I have a problem. Something is wrong. And I got into Al-Anon at that point. And then later into therapy. Actually, I did some therapy before Al-Anon, but they were all sort of mixed in. And then I did a lot of therapy. I ended up getting married, did a lot of couples therapy with my husband, my first husband. I'm in a second marriage now. And then I decided to become a therapist because I was really good at working with people. I'd already done a lot of work on myself. I understood how I was constructed. And in the process, I just somehow became more and more focused on working with couples. And then I've written a educational program called WeConcile, which is for couples to work on their relationship. I also have a book called The Magic Cake, The 7 Ingredients of a Relationship Ready Person. And that's for singles. Okay. And it's what you want to look at in yourself and what you want to look at in whoever you're considering to date or are dating.
Nice. I'm really excited to have you on because, I am a therapist as well, and you're a therapist, and I never, this is the first time I'm actually having a therapist on to talk about marriage and family. And just like you, I loved working with couples when I was, working as a therapist, and now shifting my gears to working with singles. But for, I know today you're on here to talk about Weconcile and how you work with couples in reconnecting. But before we get to that, let's start by hearing, I know you started talking about how you're on your second marriage. So let's start talking about that a little bit. Just give us a short summary of what does it look like?
So my marriage now is very different than my first marriage. My first marriage had a lot of conflict that wasn't resolvable. And I'm in a marriage now where we've worked through all the hard stuff. We're just on easy place now. It's very comfortable, very safe, very supportive. My husband, when I was writing Weconcile, was reading it and helping me do edits. So we talked a lot about all the stuff that it brought up. We learned about it. He learned about attachment when I was writing about attachment. He learned about, the negative cycle that we get in our relationships when I was writing about it. We learned about family of origin issues when I was writing about it. So we had it created a lot of space for us to process. And also I have really good skills in terms of talking about what's going on with me. So if we got into a conflict, I would be able to say, well, this is the part of me that's wounded, that's being affected. And what is the part of you that, help him find the part of him that was being wounded. And
we were awesome.
So we were able to sort of meet and eventually able to go, oh, I'm really upset, but I can still reach towards you. I don't have to pull into my own corner.
Right.
And I understand your perspective now. It makes sense. And you understand mine. It makes sense. We're not just like thinking the other person's crazy. So So it was a process, but it's, we're through that at this point. I mean, sure, everyone has little scuffles here and there,
Oh,
but it's
sure,
not
yeah.
like we don't get stuck.
Yeah, yeah. No,
So
it's what I loved about that is that, just having him go through and read through your stuff, and one, it's a very
yeah,
supportive husband, and two, it's like you're doing this together, and I think that's great. Yeah. So how long have you been married?
we've been married 8 years and together 12 years.
So I know you're very passionate about attachment styles, attachment language. So can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah.
So first of all, I did an episode where I talked about attachment styles, and how we are raised is sort of how we show up in the relationships that we end up in, and understanding what your partner's attachment style is, it's very helpful. But I want to hear from you, since you are more of a subject matter expert. What is it, and how does that benefit couples, or even a single person looking for love?
Okay, so attachment. So if we just want to start out with what is attachment, and attachment is the mammalian need to connect and feel safe by our caregivers.
Mm-hmm.
And so it started with Bowlby, and then Mary Main and Ainsworth did a lot of work with this, but they did research with infants. And in the research, they learned that infants had specific ways of reacting to their caregivers according to the caregiver's behavior.
Right.
So if a caregiver is emotionally present, oh, you hurt yourself, I'm so sorry, what are you feeling? Really helping the child process. And that's a caregiver that the child's going to feel safe to come in, and then safe to go out and explore.
Right.
And then you develop someone who's capable of secure attachment, where they have a safe base. They know they don't have to cut their emotions off. They don't have to be afraid that they're going to be abandoned. Now, if you have a caregiver, or I'm going to use the word caregiver because we don't know if it's the mom or the dad or both,
right, or a grandmother or whatever,
or a foster place or whatever. Yeah. So
yeah. Mm-hmm.
if imagine you're in foster care and the person just ignores you, the damage that would cause.
Right.
So let's suppose that you have a parent that doesn't like your feelings. So when you're an infant and you're crying because you're hungry, they get mad. Or you're an infant who, needs your diaper changed and you're fussy and they don't want to hear it. So then you have somebody who is rejecting the infant's attachment behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what do you think is going to happen to that person? And this isn't happening once, this is happening thousands and thousands and thousands of times through the course of being an infant and a child. So the wiring we're developing as this happens, we're getting wired in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And these people get wired so that they pretend that they don't need anything because their needs were rejected.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have people who aren't in contact with their needs, with their feelings, and they're going to go out into the world and try to have relationships.
Right.
Well, you can already see this isn't going to go well.
No. Yeah.
So that's an example. Another example is, let's suppose you have a caregiver who's insensitive or uses the child for their own needs. The child is the mommy and the caregiver is the child,
Mm-hmm.
Well, then you have, or there are, sometimes they're present and available and sometimes they're rejected. Well, that's going to create a child and an adult who who wants contact but doesn't believe they can rely on it. It's not there for them.
Right.
So they're going to have their own, these are all strategies that are hardwired into us, how we relate, how we've learned to relate over time. Mm-hmm. And so, so we've got the boxes and the names. I think the names are all incredibly confusing. We've got avoidant attachment, which is also called dismissive avoidant, which is also called anxious avoidant. Mm-hmm. So, we have these names, multiple names for a box. And that's why I think it's better not to it's fine to know, it's good to know the style, but that's not, the answer is, what did it do? What did you not receive? And how did you compensate? And what wounds or deficits are you carrying now because of that?
Right.
And, we go out into the world thinking, well, we're fine. But we find out once we're in a relationship that we're actually not fine because our relationship is really struggling.
Yeah. So as a single person who, if somebody's single and they're looking for love, how can they use that information of attachment style to connect with people? Or is it something that you have to deal with once you're in a relationship?
That's a really good question. I think a lot of it happens in a relationship, but it's good to be aware. It's good to do. Personally, I'm very pro therapy. I think therapy does nothing but help if you have a good therapist, because you
Right.
start digging down into yourself and learning more about yourself. Of course, reading is really useful too. But yeah, like for example, on the adult attachment interview, which is a lot of people use that to interview and find out what's going on with people in terms of attachment. They can well, first of all, they can predict to a 75% degree accuracy what attachment style the child's going to have based on the mother's behavior, we'll say caregiver's behavior. So that already shows you the link. But once you're an adult and you're trying to deal with this, and the reason I'm bringing this up is, like, for instance, let's suppose you're someone who is disconnected from your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had this happen a million times. Someone walks into the therapy room. I ask them how their childhood, tell me about your childhood. Oh, I had a great childhood. Well, they didn't have a great childhood. That's the story in their head. But when you get down into the deeper work, you find out that, nobody ever comforted them when they were upset, or you learn all kinds of things that are, no, you didn't actually have a great childhood. Yes, your parents loved you. We're not going to deny that, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But no, your needs weren't all met. And so there are people that when they have that disconnect, I've had a great childhood, and they actually didn't. That is something that has to be unraveled. That can happen before you're in a relationship. You don't have to be in a relationship to wait till the shit hits the fan, so to speak, before you start digging into, what did I miss? What defensive strategies? One of the levels in Weconcile, it's 5 or 6, talks about how, when you were upset, who comforted you?
Right.
And what did you do? Did someone comfort you? Was it a parent, a grandparent, an animal, a pet? Or did you go to your room by yourself? Or did you distract yourself and pretend you didn't get hurt? Like, what did you do? Because that's still wired into you.
Mm-hmm.
And learning about that helps you know, oh, that's why I'm acting this way. So there's a lot of learning that can be done before you're in a relationship.
Oh, okay. So what about when you're in a relationship? How should the attachment styles play into strengthening the marriage or relationship that you're in?
So I would say go online and do an attachment style quiz just to see what you are.
Okay.
You can do that. There's a ton of them out there.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have one I have a blog. My latest blog post is called "Grow Your Relationship with an Attachment Style Quiz," and there's two links in it. One's to an attachment quiz, and one is to a relationship quality quiz. And identify it, and then so at least now, can you hook in deeper than just knowing in your mind? That's where we get into the issue, because the stuff happens in our bodies, not just in our head.
Right.
And that's where you want to get into work that brings you into your feelings and into your bodies. So if you're in a relationship and it's struggling, number one, can you afford therapy? If so, find a good couples therapist and get some therapy. If you can't afford therapy, do a program like Weconcile. Okay. Make the time, because this is all changeable. We rewire. Right. So we have to know that, that you're not stuck. You're just, and it's always, it's you. No, it's you. It's the finger pointing game where the partners always think it's the other one. It's co-created, and you really have to get in there and see what each of them is doing.
So we covered a little bit about attachment style. And I heard you say earlier, attachment language. Can you tell us what that is and how we can use it in relationships?
Yes. So attachment language is what I call attachment language. I don't know what other people call it. It's really learning how to get down into your vulnerable needs and feelings. So and I mentioned a little bit about it, but I think we should go into it a little deeper. If you are stuck in your relationship, you probably aren't having vulnerable communications. You're probably talking, arguing about money, sex, relatives, how you're parenting. There's probably, conflicts around the content
Mm-hmm.
of the problem, but you're not able to get to the place generally where it's more vulnerable. Okay, I probably should give an example of a couple. I think that's the best way to demonstrate. So I can think of a specific couple, and he was a withdrawer.
Mm.
He, would go off into the garage or go out or whatever, and she was like a train going after him.
Like when they had a fight?
Yes.
Mm.
And even when they didn't have a fight, this dynamic was present to some degree. She was high anxiety, and she just went after him. Where are you? Why aren't you here? I mean, and he just went back further. So that she was, pushing him away. Not that he
Right.
wasn't already too far away. I mean, there's a reason she was pushing.
Mm-hmm.
So the work with that couple, some of the work was getting her to slow down. So why is she yelling and screaming? What's going on inside her? She's being abandoned. She feels he doesn't love her. She is in enormous pain. He doesn't pick up responsibility and she has to do it all. And she's furious at him.
Mm-hmm.
And, I would have been furious at him too. So when you start unpacking, so you didn't get her to start slowing down. And instead of yelling and screaming, she starts crying because she starts realizing how hurt she is, how abandoned she feels. Well, he sees that, and then he starts feeling like, oh, there's a real person there. It's not just this crazy woman chasing me. There's a real person there who needs me. Now, when we start working with him, we're going to find out, well, first of all, he had a hidden addiction. So he was someone who he checked out his way. And this is previous to her. This is behavior that went way, way, way back where he checked out. Okay. And that came up later. But meanwhile, we were still doing the work with him. And he, when we got him to look at why, what's going on when you're pulling away, what's it feel like? Why can't you move close? He's scared of her. He doesn't feel he measures up to her. He can never be good enough or do it right. He had all these feelings that he wasn't conscious of. So you had to get him into those feelings. And then they could start talking. And he would say, I want to be there for you. And she would say, oh, that feels so good when you say that. And they would start connecting. And it would build, that's how, so they started using language as they got connected into their bodies and what they were feeling. Mm-hmm. They were able to start using language, which is, I'm so afraid when you abandon me, I need to know that you're here and that you have my back. Or he would say, I need to know I'm enough for you. I need to know that you accept me as I am and that I'm not a project. And so this language and these words and this conversation couldn't happen when he was going off to the garage and she was chasing after him like a train. There was no room for it.
I see.
So that's how you start doing that.
Oh, okay. So just to give context, a little more context to that couple, I know you can't share like everything about them. Just, I know that. But so you said the guy had a hidden addiction?
Yes.
What was the addiction?
I don't remember exactly what it was. It was a drug.
Okay. So drugs.
It was a drug, and he did go into a rehab, and
okay.
They did continue working on their relationship, and but that would be so you can only do so much work until you address something like that, and so some work was done before that, but more work had to be done after that.
Right. So hearing that example, which I appreciate, I love examples and I know my audience will too, but hearing an example like that, just based on that example you shared, is it then safe to assume that attachment language is really when two people are fighting in a relationship and working with them to actually end up verbalizing whatever it is that is happening that is making them be avoidant, or that whatever attachment that the lady had, and working through actually saying how they feel and then working through whatever the problem is. Is that about right?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, it's getting them to connect with and vulnerably verbalize their attachment needs and fears.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so I mean, I don't know how long that was that you worked with them. Are they doing well now? What was the end result of?
I'm not in contact with them right now, so I'm not sure. But they certainly both grew a lot and changed a lot. And when I stopped working with them, they were together. So yeah.
In terms of like people that are in relationships, whether you're married or you're still dating, fights come up a lot, and there's some frustration and miscommunication. Like, do you feel like attachment language, attachment styles, and I know you can't speak for every problem out there, but do you feel like, to me, that sounds like that's the foundation really of at least getting your relationship on an upward trajectory. Do you find that to be true?
It is one of the foundations. It's really a group of things that have to happen. You do have to go into your history and look at how you were impacted. You do have to look at what your relationship cycle is in terms of, well, how you react, the behaviors you choose, even if it feels like they're automatic. You do have to look at how are you able to, do you know what your feelings are? Do you know what your thoughts are? Do you know what your body's sensations are? Do you know, are you getting, what's happening in your being? You can't just be cut off at the neck, because the hyperlogical people that are just, they try to argue you into whatever. That isn't that. So there's these different foundations that all need to be built. Attachment's a really important one, because you're not going to get anywhere, even if you have the other ones built, if you can't develop empathy for your partner. And part of empathy is being able to stand in the other person's shoes, not just stand in your own shoes. And securely attached people and children are more easily able to see other people's perspectives. So, there's just this, I would say there's like 7 main foundations that have to happen. But the attachment is one of the core ones.
Right. Yeah, no, I love the empathy thing. It takes me back to the whole Brene Brown has done a lot of work around empathy.
Yes.
And I think it's very important, even in just like not even romantic, in any kind of relationship that you have. It's a very important tool in the toolbox to have, for sure.
Yes.
So what tips would you have for couples that may be struggling connecting? Any tips, 2 or 3 tips you can give to couples?
Yeah. So the first tip, nobody's going to like this tip, but I'm going to say it anyway. The first tip is, when you're in a relationship, you're in a closed system. There's no new information coming in. You're both doing what you know how to do, and you're circling in this conflict, we'll say. And there's nothing new coming in to change the pattern. So you have to change it from a closed system to an open system, whether that is taking a workshop, reading a book, doing an online relational course, getting a therapist. You have to open the system. You can't stay in a closed system and expect things to change. Right. There's no way. You're both doing what you know how to do, because that's what you know how to do, and this is where you are. So that's the first tip. Open the system. Read a book, do a couples workshop, get a therapist, do a relationship online program, do something. Open the system, get new information in. That'd be the first tip. The second tip is to know that relationship conflicts are a door. They feel horrible and they can destroy your relationship, but it's also a door into transformation and greater possibility, because you can rebuild a relationship. You can both do what it takes to create a different relationship. So it's normal. Conflict's normal. And not knowing how to deal with conflict is normal. but it's not optimal. So you want to say, okay, we have a problem and we are going to address this. This is normal what we're going through, but we have the power to change who we are. So it's not just necessarily dumping your partner and finding a new one. There are cases where that works, but generally second and third marriages have lower success rates than first marriages. So just to know that. I'm not sure why. I don't know what the research is on that. But I don't know how much is it about people staying in unhappy relationships, and that skews the numbers a little bit. But so yeah, just know conflict is normal, and getting out of it, doing that relationship work is not easy, but it's easier than staying in a miserable marriage.
Yeah.
Or starting over and doing the same dance all over again.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah.
So those are the 2 tips. There's no quick tips. I mean, the quick tip would be, well, stop arguing. Good luck with that. When your feelings are involved, you don't have control. The emotional brain hijacks the cognitive brain. So if your emotions are up, forget the logical brain. It isn't there. Mm-hmm. So you have to know that. You've got to, that's why you have to work with just the emotional part and the cognitive part.
Right. It just reminded me of the times that we're in right now, of a lot of people working home together and not going into the office, and all of a sudden couples who, seemed to work because they had the opposite schedules and they saw each other for, a few hours per week,
right,
per month. And now all of a sudden they're in the house 24/7 together. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think it brings up a lot of conflict. I mean, my husband and I both work from home. We're both around each other a lot. So it's great, but we have a worked out relationship. Other people are going to find they may find that they have a need to spend a certain amount of time by themselves, mm-hmm. and they have to negotiate with their partner. Hey, this isn't about you. I'm just someone who needs a certain amount of time where I don't have to think about the other person. I can just be me. Mm-hmm. So there's that kind of stuff. And then of course there's stressors. We don't have a job, or we're afraid, or what are we going to do about our kids, or we're homeschooling and we're not good at it, or there's all these stressors that are going to raise tension also. And so knowing that this is a stressful time and you want your partner to be your friend, and find ways to talk to your partner as if he or she is a friend, and that you can find solutions to what you're experiencing.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you. So how can people connect with you if they want to connect with you?
You can go to www.weconcile.com. You can also go to my blog.weconcile.com, and I write a lot of articles on relationships and how to help people with different aspects, whether it's depression or sex, I write a lot to help people. There's a quiz, the WeConcile Quality Quiz, Relationship Quality Quiz, is at weconcile.com/quiz. And it's a 10-question quiz, and it will tell you how you're doing in 6 categories: conflict, hope, connection in your relationship. And the quiz is a good way to that's sort of through, and I have a regular website, Lehr LMFT.com. Is my regular website, where I have a personal blog and a healing tips blog, the healing tips blog is a little bit more for individuals. So anyway, I have a lot of stuff out there. You can find me. I would start at weconcile.com. And
Weconcile is WeConcile.com.
That's right. Yeah, it's like reconcile, but it's Weconcile.
Weconcile. Yeah. I like that. Well, I want to thank you for taking time to be on Real Love, Real Stories. I absolutely love talking to a fellow therapist and sort of hearing what your expertise is about, and talking about what you do. So thank you for being a part of the show.
Yeah, thank you. I really enjoyed talking with you.
Oh, me too. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much for listening, and all the way to the end. I am genuinely so grateful. So now you can continue to show your support in a few different ways. The first one is, if you can think of someone who might benefit from this episode, please send it to them. And the second thing is we all are on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and the like. So please share this episode. And I love it when people tag me to their post. And 3, head over to iTunes. You can leave a review and you can rate this episode. All your feedback is very helpful and it helps this podcast get visible so others can listen to all these great stories. Thank you so much. Till next time.